Hi there, this is Marina and Andre with the Hiking Sparrow, and today we are visiting the Blythe Intaglios, or also known as geoglyphs. When you drive through the desert near Blythe, California, it looks like nothing special at first glance. Just the Colorado desert doing what it does best: sand, rocks, wind, highway, and repeat. But the moment you send the drone into the air, the story changes. Suddenly, the desert starts talking. What you are looking at here are the Blythe Intaglios, or Blythe geoglyphs, a group of gigantic figures carved into the ground near the Colorado River. They are so large that you can stand right next to them and never realize what you are standing in. From the ground, they are just lines and disturbed gravel. From above, they turn into humans, animals, symbols, arrows, geometrical shapes stretched over the desert floor. We filmed all three sites with the drone. One of them we actually reached by flying straight from the parking area because climbing down a steep white wash and then dragging ourselves back up on loose rock did not sound like a life goal on that hot desert day. So the drone is the athlete in this relationship, not us. The Blythe Intaglios are part of a larger family of desert hieroglyphs, images made on the ground by rearranging or removing surface material. Around the world, these can be made from earth mounds, piles of stones, or just scraped surfaces. The most famous are probably the Nazca lions in Peru. One of these days, I'll make a video about Nazca lions as well. We have visited them in 2012. Here in the Colorado Desert of southeastern California, the technique is different, but the idea is similar. People scraped away the dark, varnished desert pavement, those sunburned rocks and pebbles on the surface, to reveal lighter soil underneath. The removed stones were pushed aside to outline the shapes, and the exposed soil was often stomped down to make sure that plants would not grow back easily in the lines. Altogether, the Blythe Intaglios includes six main figures in three locations: three human figures, two four-legged animals, and at least one spiral, possibly representing a rattlesnake or maybe some other symbolic form. The largest human figure here is about 171 feet from head to toe. Other sources mention similar figures in the region between about 95 and 167 feet long. Either way, they are huge. These images are laid out on flat terraces along the Colorado River floodplain, on low mesas and alluvial fens just west of US Highway 95 and north of Blythe. The Blythe intaglios are the best known of more than 200, 300 desert intaglios found in the wider Colorado Desert and American Southwest. The Colorado Desert actually has the only known desert intaglios in North America, and many of them lie along the Colorado River. Human figures like this are found only near this river corridor. Other geoglyphs in this region show mountain lions, birds, snakes, geometric forms, circles, paths, and other zoomorphic or abstract shapes. No indigenous group has formally claimed to have created the Blythe intaglios, but several groups along the Colorado River have said they use them and recognize them in their cultural traditions. Radiocarbon dating of material associated with the geoglyphs, including work by archaeologist J. von Weerhoff and his collaborators, suggests dates ranging roughly from 900 before Common Era to 1200 Common Era. So somewhere between about 450 and 2000 years ago. The figures likely fall into that broad range, and some may be more recent than others. According to the Mohave and Quechan peoples, who are native to the lower Colorado River region, the human figures represent Mastamho, the creator of all life. Some of the animal figures, especially those resembling mountain lions, are associated with Hatakulya, a powerful figure involved in the creation stories. In many talents, sacred ceremonial dances were once held here to honor the creation and the mythic beings connected with it. Patterns of disturbed earth and circular traces near some of the figures suggest that people may have danced in these very spots. Trails lead to and between the intaglios, and rock alignments and cairns are often found nearby. Some researchers believe the intaglios may have been stopping points on the keruk pilgrimage, part of the keruk ceremony, a major mourning ritual practiced by several native groups in Southern California. This ceremony reenacted the death of the creator and remembered those who had died since the previous keruk. Others see the geoglyphs as ceremonial sites used to enact parts of the creation narratives right in the landscape where those mythic events were believed to have taken place. For a long time, these figures remained essentially invisible to non native people. It's hard to imagine, but images more than 100 feet across went largely unnoticed until the era of aviation. In 1932, a pilot named George Palmer was flying between Las Vegas, Nevada and Blythe, California, when he happened to look down and notice the giant shapes on the desert surface. His report led to a survey of the area that same year by Arthur Woodward, curator of history and anthropology at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County. Later in 1939, Malcolm J. Rogers studied and sketched the figures in more detail. Can you imagine George flying above the desert and then he looks down and there are huge human figures are staring back at him from the ground? I think it would have been hilarious to see that. In 1952, National Geographic published an article about the Blythe Intaglios, which suddenly brought them wider attention. And with that attention came problems. Because as you know, visitors, or humans, they tend to come and destroy what they see because some don't care about future generations and preserving history for them. But anyway, enough of that. Visitors walking on the lines, driving vehicles across them, and genuine curiosity caused damage to the figures. In 1974, the Bureau of Land Management installed fences around some of the geoglyphs to help protect them. In 1982, the Blythe Intaglios were placed on the National Register of Historic Places. Similar intaglios, known as the Ripley Group, were later identified across the river in Arizona, opposite Ripley, California. Throughout the region, nearly 60 sites with humanoid figures have been documented, most with deeply etched torsos and shallower arms and legs. Often the head or one or more limbs are missing or only suggested. All rock art is closely tied to its landscape, and Blythe is no exception. Before the Colorado River was dammed and heavily diverted to irrigate the modern American Southwest, spring floods could turn much of this valley into a temporary island sea. Actually, not island, it's inland sea. The geoglyphs placed on elevated terraces and alluvial fence would have looked down over those periodic floodwaters. It creates a powerful image: human, huge human, and animal forms carved into high ground overlooking a valley that sometimes was almost like an ocean, sometimes dry desert, over centuries and centuries. So, what were these figures for? The honest answer is we don't know for sure. Nobody knows for sure. There are several major lines of thought. Ceremonial and religious use. The most widely accepted idea is that the figures were part of spiritual and ceremonial life. The human figures are linked to Mastamho, the creator, and the animal figures to powerful beings like Hatakulya. Ceremonial dances, mourning rituals like the keruk, and reenactments of creation stories may all have taken place here. The second theory is pilgrimage sites. Some researchers suggest the geoglyphs were important points along pilgrimage routes where people stopped to perform rituals, mourn, or honor mythic figures as they moved throughout the landscape. The third one is celestial and calendar connections. Others have proposed that some of the geoglyphs may be aligned with celestial events, perhaps solstices, lunar cycles, or star patterns, although definitive evidence is still debated. And then there is communal art and memory. There is also a thoughtful idea that the act of making these figures was as important as or more important than the finished shapes. The people creating them couldn't see the entire image from the ground. They weren't making a picture for themselves in the way we think of art today, but they were performing something together on the land. The geoglyphs could be communal memory, ritual, or story woven directly into the desert floor. Then there is completely different kind of explanation, one that belongs more to legend and pseudoscience than to archaeology. Some writers, including Erich von Däniken, have promoted the idea that the geoglyphs were created with help from giants or even extraterrestrial visitors. The argument goes something like this: the figures are too large and too complex, and they can only be fully appreciated from the air. So ancient people must have been guided by beings who could see them from above. This giants theory is dramatic and cinematic, but it's not supported by evidence. And archaeologists and indigenous communities reject this. The scientific and indigenous perspectives agree that the Blythe Intaglios are the work of native peoples who lived along the Colorado River, using tools, techniques, and knowledge entirely within human reach. Still, when you are standing in a desert or looking at these figures from a drone, there is a certain emotional space where the imagination wakes up. The wind is loud sometimes it's very quiet, but the land is definitely quiet. And the 150-foot human figure carved into the ground has a way of making you ask big, slightly uncomfortable questions. And also, here is where the desert stories start to echo across time and space. In Arizona, there is another mystery: the Sinagua people. They once lived in fertile valleys, farming rich land with water access. And then at some point, they moved their homes high up into the cliffs, as if they were deliberately choosing to live in hard to reach places. To a modern observer, it can look almost like they were hiding from someone. Later, even these cliff dwellings were abandoned. In some places, it looks as if people left in a hurry and never came back. Archaeologists have their own theories about climate, drought, social change, and trade routes. But at the level of story, people sometimes imagine something darker, a presence, a threat, something powerful enough that communities would leave fertile valleys, climb into the rocks, and eventually disappear from those homes as well. So when you look at these desert giants around Blythe, there is a tempting question. What if the story of the Blythe geoglyphs and the story of the Sinagua live in their valleys and cliff homes? What if they are distant chapters of the same very long desert narrative? There is no proof for that. It's just a thought, a feeling, and a way of sensing that the Southwest is full of patterns we don't fully understand yet. But in the desert, questions often live longer than answers. The Blythe Intaglios are best seen the way you are seeing them now, from above. For a long time, the only ones who could see the whole figures at once were birds, spirits, and later pilots with small planes. Today, we can add drones to that list. Flying over them with a drone is a strange experience. There is no sound except the wind and the quiet hum of the props. The figures don't move, but something in you does. You're looking at artwork that might be up to 2,000 years old, made by people who walked the same ground, watched the same river flood and recede, and told stories about creators, mountain lions, mourning, and the path of the stars. Some people say these geoglyphs were messages to the sky. Some say they were part of ceremony. Some say giants or visitors from above had a hand in it. Most likely, they were created by human hands for human reasons, spiritual, communal, and deeply tied to place. But standing there or hovering above them with a camera, it's hard not to wonder who these figures were really meant for and who was supposed to see them. Sometimes history hides right in front of us. We just have to change our angle to finally notice it. That's it for today's travel. What do you think? Who carved these giant figures in the middle of nowhere? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's figure it out together. Thanks for traveling with us. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time on the trip.